Haha. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. If you've been around on the internet for the past about 2 years, then you might have heard about this news that is happening in Florida. Right now, the Florida House of Representatives has approved of a bill to ban social media for kids under 16. The bill now leads to the GOP controlled state Senate for consideration. Now, there's a lot of miscommunication going on platforms like Twitter where they think that it's been suddenly signed into law. That is not the case. As the article states, the Florida House of Representatives had passed the bill, but it must also go through the Senate. So in this article, it says that legislators in the Florida House of Representatives on Wednesday approved what could be the strictest regulation on social media and kids in the country. Florida House Bill 1 would prohibit children under the age of 16 from using most social media platforms, regardless of parental approval. The social media platforms the bill would target include any site that tracks user activity, allows children to upload content, or uses addictive features designed to cause compulsive use. The House passed the bill by a vote of 106 to 13, with many Democrats joining the chamber's Republican majority in support of the bill. State Rep. Fiona McFarland described social media as digital fentanyl for kids when promoting the bill on the House floor. And I was just about to say this, but it looks like it's covered. They state that it's like a digital fentanyl, and even the most plugged-in parent or attuned teen has a hard time shutting the door against these addictive features. And they're right. Social media affects not only children, but it also affects adults as well. One thing that I was curious about was, I wonder, will this really work? Because even though there are websites that have age verification, people will often lie about their age all the time. I mean, in order to get a YouTube account, you have to go through Google, which requires an email, which can be made when you're young, but to get just a general YouTube account, you need to be 18. And there are kids that have, lied to try to get into the website and make their own YouTube channel. And given that this bill is meant to be more proactive in preventing young children from going into social media, I'm curious if this will lead to worse policies, possibly more restrictive ones. Going down, it says the bill would allow the termination of social media accounts belonging to kids under 16, including the deletion of information from pre-existing accounts. It would also require that social media sites use reasonable age verification methods to verify users' ages. Now, again, I get that this is in the initial stages, but reasonable age verification methods is such a vague term, especially when just presenting it like immediately. So again, what are the possible future ramifications of this? For one, this could require the use of ID to access many websites. And sure, while it is understandable that in a sense, it does help to prevent minors from seeing undesirable content, another layer should instead be put in place by the parents or the caretaker. This is just through observation, and you can tell me otherwise if you've seen something else, but from what I've seen of this newer generation of parents or caretakers, they will often, to distract a child and to keep their mind occupied, they will leave them an iPad and a video running in the background while they go relax or do something else. And though I'm not a parent, I do understand the importance of relaxation because, yes, even though I don't know fully well about the stresses of parenting, I do know that it is one of the most difficult jobs that somebody can be in. However, I'm one of those people that believes that there should be a different method when it comes to either distracting their kids. Because sure, whatever activity that they're doing can stimulate their critical thinking and help them to have a better understanding of certain context by whatever they're watching and things like that. But in a sense, you should also be careful and monitor whatever it is that's being shown. Because even though, for example, they're using YouTube and the videos are catered to kids, not everything that's labeled under kids is explicitly only for children. That was why back in the 2016-2017 era of YouTube, there was just this influx of garbage that took advantage of YouTube's algorithm where videos were catered to young children. You had those weird videos, and I don't think I can find them anymore, of like of like Freddy Fazbear, Elsa from Frozen, and Spider-Man getting into a fist fight or things like that, and it was just somebody's backyard. And this was due to children's videos and channels like Cocomelon or Ryan's Toy Review or those weird channels that I mentioned before having such high watch traffic. And this was why YouTube was hit with the COPPA lawsuit in 2019, and that's why you have to mark your own videos as either safe or not safe for kids. If it was safe for kids, then it wasn't monetized. And if it wasn't, then you can get monetized, but there's this gray line. It's so weird now. It's so weird. And also, for some reason, adult cartoons will be put under the for kids category. This was not on the fault of the channels. This was the fault of YouTube, under the assumption that because it's a cartoon, it's for children, and it got pushed there, and that's why some kids will possibly be able to see that. Now, I mentioned before that the possible future ramifications of this would be the requirement of the identification to use and access a lot of websites. Doesn't this sound like another bill? It sounds eerily familiar to something else. You remember this bill? This bill was introduced into the Senate on May 2nd, 2023. It is S1409, the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA for short. And the kids in question refer to individuals under the ages of 13. And its policies will force social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok to prevent kids from viewing harmful content within said platforms. Over time, the accessibility to said content will involve the requirement of revealing private information, such as a driver's license, for age verification. However, like what we saw with Florida, this bill doesn't have a clear definition of what is specifically deemed harmful, and controversy has risen for this, that it violates the First Amendment. And I've seen arguments regarding this also being directed at the Florida bill as well. Again, if you restrict social media, sure, it can protect minors from viewing content they're not supposed to see, but at the same time, it's also a bit detrimental because you block off a plethora of just general information. You remove possible biases that a person could have developed growing up in the environment around them, should they not have access to certain information. Many of our current events and news, conflicts, and history that is being made at this very moment are updated in seconds through videos and posts on social media. And sure, it's understandable. There are many posts on these platforms and information given on here that could be fake or misinformed, but that's still an exposure to different ideas. And unfortunately, children, when they grow up, are still going to be exposed to this regardless. But because they were not given the necessary tools at a young age, they will have little to no idea how to properly tackle or to navigate these streams when it comes to the online world, and just, again, the information that's given to them. In order to navigate it, a different approach needs to be made. So I'm reading through the article again, and I saw this. It was pretty much my argument as well. Many teens today leverage the internet and apps to responsibly gather information and learn about new opportunities, including part-time jobs, higher education, civic or church gatherings, and military service. And this is from Meta Representative Calder Harville Childs. Now again, I don't know where Meta's coming from. I don't know if this is due to the back of the mind building a profit by having a bigger audience. I actually don't know the outcome of when Mark Zuckerberg was put under fire for, trading information. But I believe that this specific stance still holds a lot of weight, regardless of who it's coming from. Again, you don't need to restrict social media. You just have to teach and provide quality media literacy within the K-12 curriculum. Now, I went over this in my last video regarding Oshinoko and the importance of media literacy, but this is the definition. Media literacy is an expanded conceptualization of literacy that includes the ability to access and analyze media messages, as well as create, reflect, and take action using the power of information and communication to make a difference in the world. And as I mentioned before, with the integration of media literacy, you're able to weed your way through the garbage, the misinformation, the engagement baiting, things like that, because you have built a foundation through the tools and necessities that are taught with media literacy. Media literacy isn't meant to sway you to one side or the other, whether you be independent, you have your beliefs on the left or the right. It's primarily made to help individuals hone their skills when it comes to critical thinking. You can have your own opinions and people can agree or disagree with them, but the more important thing is having the legitimate and correct information presented to you before you come to a conclusion. And in the case of why Florida is banning children under 16 from using social media, again, as I mentioned before, it falls to how social media is structured, because you have algorithms like on YouTube or Twitter or even on TikTok, which probably has the most advanced out of the social media platforms that are generally used right now, in that it's made to garner and grab at your attention and maintain it through possibly minutes or hours at a time. Each new video that's presented to you, that's either 30 seconds or less, or maybe even a minute, give you a sense of dopamine because you have the beginning and the conclusion. It's quick content that's just presented to you, and then you move on to the next. But because the attention span and the need for that dopamine happens so quickly, now people have the expectation and are hardwired to crave content that acts exactly like that over and over. It is a repeated pattern that is just endlessly beaten into your perception on an expectation on social media. That's why people often say that there are little to no attention spans because of things like this. Now, I could be playing devil's advocate, but starting out, I don't believe that social media platforms ever intended to cause harm to individuals. They just wanted to grab at the attention. But I don't think they saw in the long run just how damaging that structure for their social media platforms can be. That's why you always see those videos of the iPad kid, where they're just playing Minecraft, or they have the Subway Surfers and Family Guy in the corner while playing a game. That's because of things like this. And again, I completely get where you're coming from. That's dangerous, especially for children, especially for developing children, because they have that expectation set in them. And for all we know, that sets a precedent, because now whatever they're exposed to, it's going to reflect and show on their kids later on. But instead of completely shutting it down, it would be better to more so give them the necessary tools so that they can approach these situations and know how to adapt to it. Teach them about controlling and being careful about content and algorithms that are meant to keep their mind engaged. Tell them about AI generated pictures or art and misinformation or photos. Teach them to not emotionally latch out when information is given on, say, a content creator or celebrity. That's why cancel culture is so prevalent. While at first it was good in calling out people who had exhibited bad behaviors in the present, and even in the past, there are many avenues of cancel culture where it has gotten to the point where it's calling you out on the smallest of things, and it's like the game of telephone. Somebody gives an emotional statement on Twitter berating something, and when people find out through their followers, that then leads to skewed information and a misrepresentation of said information due to that person's emotional response and interpretations of that message. It's this weird cycle that you have to address. And again, cutting it off doesn't do anything. Giving them the necessary tools will help them in the long run and prevent frequent incidences that have been slowly swelling up within the online sphere from happening within newer generations and even with the older ones. I mean, tabloid articles have been around for so long with the fake news or embellished information. It's just that they changed the medium. And it's unfortunate that, the misinformation is spread through the fastest medium we have in regards to sending information and messages. Because you could get something in literally the snap of a finger. And in another snap of the finger, that information, whether it be positive or negative, primarily negative in this context, is spread to somebody else. So again, I don't know if I made a coherent argument or if my thoughts were properly articulated, but I understand why Florida is going with this approach, but again, that is not the correct way to do it. And they're completely correct in that social media becomes so addictive. It's like a digital fentanyl, as they said. And if even teens, parents, and adults have such a hard time catching themselves going in that pattern against these addictive features, then the effects can be worse for children. But again, shutting it off does more harm than good. Just present them with the necessary tools like media literacy or just general literacy when it comes to critical thinking and how to navigate certain information. Find people who understand the minutiae when it comes to navigating the online world, and give those specifics to children, because as they grow up with it and as that information is being repeatedly told to them, they start to understand its importance when presented with a situation like that online. And they can understand retrospectively, like, oh, that was why that information was told to me at such a young age. Because as more context is given to me as I grow older, I now have the necessary tools to understand as to why that can be detrimental to somebody who was like me at a younger age. The online world is scary, and back in the early 2000s, it was even more unfiltered than it is now. But we know that growing up isn't easy, and in part this comes with growing up. So again, the necessary tools need to be implemented in order to deal with situations like this. But that was my opinion. What do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Was I not coherent enough? If you would like me to elaborate more on a specific point, because maybe I wasn't articulate enough, or I didn't go into more detail, or I ran off and conjoined two other subjects together, let me know, and I will respond accordingly. If you agree or disagree, I will try my best to respond to everything with a completely neutral stance. Again, I hope to build a comment section and community of discussion, even if our points don't align. Just having an environment that has that well organized, neutral discussion opens up a whole door for learning more about other people and the world or cultures. It opens up a lot of things. So, again, let me know. We'll see where things develop from here. Will I update on this information? I don't know. But that's it. See you next time.